Everybody, you're still watching the Transatlantic Crypto Podcast, the next episode. And by the way, we're here, your co-host. My name is Eugene I'm from Belarus Broadcasting, and please welcome my co-host. He is the renowned R.L. Breyer, the author of the blockchain project Renaissance, and he's been on a crypto space since the first Genesis block had been generated in 2009, maybe, and they've been announced to Sadoshi's. So, my friend, it's great to have you on. Lately, we inevitably will be discussing what's going on in the United States from the Austrian school perspective. You've used it's very interesting, but let's start with the news. I know you've got some interesting news. Let's start with them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be back with you again, Eugene. This is one of my favorite things to do each month. So whenever I get to talk to you, it's a pleasure. The PayPal news is pretty big. There's I think it was CoinDesk or one of the major outlets, crypto outlets, broke this week. I think it was Ian Allison of CoinDesk that PayPal is alleged to be getting ready to integrate Bitcoin into their platform. So they're going to be onboarding buying and selling of Bitcoin, as well as Venmo, and PayPal alone has 325 million customers. So that's pretty big news that, Bitcoin is going to be getting in front of, a couple 100 million more eyes each month or each time somebody even uses their PayPal account. A lot of people still use PayPal for various, reasons. They're a small business or whatever, eBay or stuff like that. So it's good news for the hodlers out there and the people that really believe in Bitcoin.
Wow, sounds great. Well, let's switch. We all know what's going on in the United States. We all watch news. That we understand that leftists, it seems like they have been winning as Red Partians, Austrians, and other free liberal-minded people. Give us your close opinion. What is going on? Of course, I mean, Black Lives Matter movement and so on and so forth. Give us the whole vision of the situation. How do you see that in being inside the United States?
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a Rothbard quote real quick. As
Good.
you know, you and I are huge Austrian school fans. This quote goes, "It is in war that the state really comes into its own, swelling in power, in number, in pride, in absolute dominion over the economy and society." That's Murray Rothbard. So I think that what's going on right now, I really believe this, is if you look back at it was like 1969, there was a group called the Weather Underground, and I'm the first person, honestly, that I've seen talk about this. They were a communist, a self-described communist group, and what they did was I think it was defunct in 1977. So over about 7 or 8 years, what they did, they called themselves, they were part of, it started out of a Students for a Democratic Society. And if you listen to what Hans Hermann Hoppe and a lot of other Austrians say, democracy is just a soft variant of communism. And it's never been really thought of anything else in the history of ideas. So over time, we've had groups like the Weather Underground, which have, blown up buildings, and really they're all about destruction and Marxism. They talk about a classless society and all these ideas which have just been recycled over and over again, and they find new ways to implement them. Well, the Weather Underground, these people ended up not going to prison or anything for a long time, and they ended up, I know at least one of the founding members became a professor. And this is really what these people have infiltrated some of the most important aspects of society. These are the people that are teaching our children at universities and stuff like that. And I think now we're seeing the culmination of decades of this indoctrination through public education, public universities, and such really manifest right now. And it's spilling out into the streets now. So you have a lot of people with no direction, just causing destruction. It's people, these people don't create anything. They don't really understand anything about economics and how things are created. They haven't studied anything like that. They just believe in Marxism, and they've been indoctrinated to believe that somebody is oppressing them. So what they're doing is they're getting in the streets and they're really just dividing us. And this is really what it's all about, like I said a minute ago, class, class warfare. They believe in like class, creating a classless society. And eventually you run out of other people's money, as you know that you've studied you're Russian, or you studied the Soviet Union and stuff like that, so you know how it ends. And these people just seem to have no sort of historical record to fall back on. So it's very scary what's going on, and it's very destructive and dangerous. And I think that it's going to become more destructive and dangerous if it isn't, it isn't put to an end soon. And you and I aren't proponents of the state, but private property is essential. It's the foundation of freedom and civilization. If you can't protect private property, then you have no civilization, you have no society. So,
well, thank you for implementing, for mentioning that. The great thesis, some of intellectuals, my friend, my said, they do clearly understand, and they are saying that the part of American society right now is trying to implement the socialism, the pure socialism ideas, and they are trying to do that just because they have no idea how it ends, how it would have been ended, because we Russians, we did the same thing 100 years ago in 1917, and we do clearly know what it would, how it ended in 1990s, and we don't know we understand the dangers of the socialism ideas. And just because United States were not living in this real pure socialism, they don't know, they do not have such a historical experience, and right. They are very, very close to make that mistake. Just do not let them do it, because the socialism, like Ludwig von Mises wrote in his famous book in 1992, Socialism. Just read that book and understand that socialism, it has no theoretical basis. It cannot be implemented. It inevitable will have ended with mass killing, mass murder, and catastrophe. And a history of Soviet Union truly proves us and shows us how could it be. To study the history of I won't say USSR, Soviet Union, the right. Abbreviation of USSR. I don't know how to
Soviet Republic.
Yes,
Soviet
I have forgotten how
to.
Yeah. Okay, let's pass it right. Let me share the news from Belarus. Now we here in Belarus, we have a sort of revolution, because our dictator Alexander Lukashenko, has been sitting on the power for 26 years, and the year 2020, he has got 3 problems in one time. The oil crisis, because the Belarusian economy was totally tied to Russian oil supply, and it has had it. The Corona crisis, Lukashenko demonstratively had not declared quarantine, and now we have a very dangerous situation, and the powers are lying like that was in Chernobyl times. Every one of you watching that Chernobyl HNBS series, it was one of the, very truthful serial. If you want to study the Chernobyl history, just watch the HBO series Chernobyl. It was very truly, even for us, we're living that time, and when we do understand the very realistic picture was shown in this TV series. And right now, in the coronavirus situation, all the events coming here in Belarus are very closely, the powers authorities are lying a lot, and the people understand that Lukashenko right now has not more than 3% of legitimacy. 97% of the Belarus population, which is up to 10 million people, hates him. And they are doing, I would say, that guerrilla war of population to the authorities. And Lukashenko being sitting 26 years and having catched power by his arms for deathly, he doesn't understand the real situation, and he even wants to, I'm scared to say, but even to shoot people for safekeeping his power. It's very uncertain situation, and right now we have such revolution. And Russians, people who live in Russia, in Putin's Russia, they have up to the similar situation because the Russian powers are now they are making such a referendum of changing the constitution, of like a nullifications of uh, presidential credentials of Putin for being Putin like a tsar. That sounds incredible in 21st century.
Right.
Russia turns into like a 19th century country. It sounds great. And all the population, do you understand what's going on? And the clever population refuses to go that way. So the authorities in our countries, and Belarus and Russia are very similar countries in that way. Authorities are making war. It's honestly saying making war against the population. That's the situation we live in right now. But let's switch another. I know you're making a lot of podcasts right now. I've been observing on your Instagram. So how many podcasts are you recording right now with him? Tell us about it.
Yeah, I've been putting up my Various and Numerous podcast, about one a week. I've had some really interesting guests on there recently. I'm trying to keep up with you. You're the podcast legend. Yeah, about one a week, and then I do this one with you once or twice a month. But yeah, I had some really interesting people on there in the last few weeks. Just for example, the PR guy for marketing with Zilliqa. I think that's going to be a very interesting project. You should talk to him if you get an opportunity. They're doing big stuff there. I think it'll be a real serious competitor to Ethereum in the future. They seem to be able to scale a little bit better, and they're doing some really cool stuff with domain names, and you can have your own .zil and stuff like that domain, and just neat things like that. And then you can actually within the address, your URL or whatever is actually that can be your payment address. So just new ways to make crypto a little bit easier to use for commerce and things like that. And yeah, so I'm excited about that. And I'm actually throwing around the idea right now of making a documentary, which if I do, I'm going to ask you to be a part of that. So yeah, so I've been talking to a few people about that, and I'm going to try to get a little bit of funding for that. And if I make that, you're going to have to be in that 100%. So I'm asking you right now. I
definitely appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Because we are creating our reality. We are creating our in future. We're creating our present situation. Do you have any ideas how the 2020 year will have ended? What events would you expect? Have you any ideas? Sure.
Oh man, it's 2020 has been so crazy. It's hard to say. I still think that I'm an anarcho-capitalist Austrian school guy. I don't really get into politics too much because as we've talked about in this podcast, the government always wants more and more power, and it's worse for the the populace and the people. But I think that Trump will probably end up being reelected in the United States, and whatever that means. You can't. He's added more debt to the United States in his first term than I think any other president. So we're in a really weird world right now where the guy who's running as a conservative is supposed to be like fiscally conservative and not big spender is really growing the government faster than any president in the history of the country. But yeah, but I'm also one last thing I wanted to mention with you real quick. I'm a big Bitcoin guy, and I did get in 2009. But Bitcoin right now, I still think the Bitcoin in the next years, we're probably going to break all-time highs. But it is down 30% for the last 12 months. Ethereum down 34%. And I've mentioned with you before, I'm really bullish on Chainlink and their Oracle solution. They're up 96% for the year, last 12 months. And they just had a huge partnership with the BSN network in China. And they're going to validate data for the IRITA network there in their applications. So that's over 1 billion people that are going to be using Chainlink Oracle. So keep your eye out for Chainlink. This isn't financial advice or anything like that, but I really believe that Chainlink could, I think Chainlink will finish the year in the top 10 and maybe at maybe 2021 it would be in the top 5. So watch out for Chainlink.
Yeah, I've just realized that I don't really know any Chinese liberal or Austrian economics related guy. Maybe if you know the guy from Asia belongs to Austrian economics, uh, find him and invite him as a guest on our podcast. Let ask him how he trapped to these ideas, because
Yeah, that's a good idea.
that's good. Yeah, because we Austrian economists, we do not, and I really appreciate it, that we do not belong to any country or state, because we are anti-statists. Because Austrian economic mind guy is a liberal. He's thinking about the market economy, and he understands that the government or state is the biggest enemy of any market. Like Murray Rothbard wrote, power and market. It's how to say. He did it. Oh, I forgot the word, but he placed these words, power and market, for showing that these are two enemies, or they are in contradiction.
Right.
Accidental.
Yeah, people really don't even know the definition of capitalism today, and it's really just voluntary exchange. And as soon as you add in a third-party intermediary, like you just mentioned, the state, that's not really, you lose the essence of capitalism, and it's automatically, it turns into corporatism or whatever you want to call it.
Well, thank you, man, that you were listening the Transatlantic Crypto Podcast, and that is the real transatlantic, because we are trying to connect with today's Zoom year 2020. We're trying to connect the parts of the world such as United States or Europe, Eastern Europe, and we are trying to show that the world is being driven by the market ideas first, because the market are the humans, and governments are against humans. That's the main idea we're trying to show. So Arnold Breyer and Eugene Romanienko over here, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for next episodes of the Transatlantic Crypto Podcast. See ya.